No! What did they do with my little yellow munchkin? Hasbro was too cheap to give me an extra Hugh Jackman head. Why, if that ever happened to me spending the rest of my life with no head, I, I, I think I just. Hello there, and welcome to another action figure review. I'm Mark from Castillo Collectibles Corner, and today we're going to be looking at the Marvel Legends series Deadpool and Wolverine movie version of Brown Suit Wolverine. I'm excited to review this action figure. Generally, I think he looks a lot better than the official Astonishing Suit Wolverine that we got in the official film. I was not actually looking for this figure when they first announced it and when I heard people finding it in stores. One Friday when I was going toy hunting, I visited a Target store that's within my reach. And at that Target store, when I went to the action figure aisle where they have the Marvel stuff, the DC stuff, the Transformers, that aisle, I unexpectedly found two of these figures, and surprisingly, he was the only one. I didn't see any of the other characters from this specific wave, and I was shocked to actually see that Brown Suit Wolverine was the only one on the shelf. Now, there are some things that keep this figure from being the perfect representation of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and we'll discuss that more as we dive into this review. But before we talk about the figure itself, let's start off things like we always do, talking about the packaging. I'm gonna go ahead and adjust my camera over here so you can get a better look of it. This packaging is nothing really that special. It's got that Deadpool theme to it to tie into Deadpool and Wolverine, the film. So you get this drawing on the insert, which is pretty neat and pretty hilarious, Deadpool themed. And on the side, we get a picture of the figure and not a concept art. On the back, we get that same picture over here. And then we get a read up over here. If you want to pause it, you can go ahead and do so and read that. And then at the bottom, we get the other figures from this wave. I don't know if I'll actually pick up any more of these action figures. I did enjoy the Deadpool and Wolverine film when it was out in theaters. I likely won't get all of these, but if I were to probably get a few more of these, I would probably go with maybe X-23 and maybe Blade. I'm not so sure. But I could get those later down the line, but for now, I'm just content with getting this figure since this was the only one I wanted to get. Packaging is very basic. I got nothing more to say about it other than it's just fairly simple. It's nothing that special. So for the packaging, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Let's get a height measurement going. So Wolverine stands at about, not counting the what Deadpool refers to as the blowjob handles, I would say it's almost 6.5 inches. Now we take a closer look at the figure. The overall first impression, especially when I saw this on the shelf, this figure looks amazing. I can't begin to tell you how awesome this action figure looks. I mean, just right down to all the details, all the panels. And I love that this almost looks like 100% faithful recreation of the iconic brown suit that Wolverine has in the comics. And I love, if we get a closer look at his face here, just get my lighting adjusted here, you can see that this mask is spot on. Now, unfortunately, the official Wolverine mask that we got with the astonishing suit did not look like this. I can understand why, but the design of this suit is way better than what we got. Now, if you've seen the film, you will know that we never actually get to see Hugh Jackman wear the mask with the brown suit. That was done intentionally, but it just looks fantastic. And spoiler warning, if you haven't seen the film already, you can skip a little bit if you don't want to hear the spoilers. Since his astonishing suit mostly got destroyed from that final battle with Cassandra Nova, it makes me wonder if we'll actually see the brown suit in Avengers Doomsday, if he's actually going to be in the film. That would be amazing. As much as of a fan I was with Astonishing Suit, especially how it looked in the comic book, this one is just so much better. I would love to see this on the big screen. But I really appreciate that Hasbro fixed that they unfortunately did not with their Astonishing Suit Wolverine, the very first release that we got during the same year that the movie was out. They fixed the hip joints. The legs are not far apart like they were on that figure, and it looks like they corrected it over here. It just looks so much better. And even the facial hair on his mask, or on the lower part of his face, it looks fantastic. The claws are actually very good too. They're just a straight grayish, silverish plastic. Even the X-Men logo on his belt looks fantastic as well. Yeah, the boots are also pretty spot on to the comic book suit. Yeah, everything about this figure, just fantastic. I couldn't be any happier with it. The overall sculpt gets a solid 5 out of 5 rating. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about the paint. The paint is pretty good for the most part. There is some slop on some areas of his suit, at least on my copy anyways. If you actually look at under here, so they did paint this to line up with the actual suit when you're articulating. The problem is when you move it a little too far out, you can see that some of the yellow is not painted. I'll talk more about that when I get into the articulation. There is a little bit of slop on some parts of the figure. And the other copy that I left when I found this at my local Target, the eyes were not painted great. This was actually the better one of the two. And you can see that there is a little bit of overspray on the skin tone right over here. But other than that, it doesn't look bad. I'm pretty happy with the choice of colors that they went with for this figure. The brown parts are just mostly brown plastic, and the yellow parts, like say on his gloves, they're actually painted, as well as on the figure itself where you see the yellow, just except for the mask, that is just the yellow plastic. But overall, the paintwork is pretty good for what it is. I'm going to give the paint score a 4 out of 5 rating. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about the accessories. Boy, do I have some things I want to say about the accessories. So I'll go ahead and put Wolverine right over here. Go ahead and adjust my camera over here. Now, when it comes to the accessories, this is the part that I wish Hasbro did much better on. So let's start off with the good things. So he does come with a pair of regular hands that don't have his adamantium claws out. And this is pretty good, but I wish that they gave us another corresponding fisted hand and another open grip hand instead of the actual other accessory that we got, which is this one. What am I supposed to do with an accessory like this? So don't get me wrong, I like how they did the cowl down on this as an accessory, and they included an extra neck base that you can swap out. The problem is he doesn't come with a Hugh Jackman head sculpt. This is what I don't understand. So a while back, not long ago, we got an extra Hugh Jackman head sculpt with the first Astonishing Wolverine figure. Last year, we got the re-release of this Avengers Endgame Captain America, which came with the unmasked Chris Evans head sculpt. That was the same price as this figure right over here. And then a few years ago, I think it was right around 2021, we got the release of Hasbro's Iron Man Mark III in their Infinity Saga line, which came with an unmasked head of Tony Stark's face. Well, he's still wearing the helmet, but the faceplate is up to reveal his face, and he came with so much more accessories. What happened with this figure? I get it that they want to do certain things to keep the cost low so that they don't have to end up raising the price, and I'm sure there are other factors that are considered when making these decisions, but this is just absolutely ridiculous. What am I supposed to do with this? And it's so blatantly obvious that they want you to buy one of their other movie Wolverine figures that come with an extra Hugh Jackman head, but they should have just included the Hugh Jackman head with this, because it makes no sense if, like, let's say I just only want this Wolverine and I don't want to buy any others. I'm gonna have to buy another Wolverine figure just to get the Hugh Jackman head sculpt, and it's just a waste. I know there's some people that are like, well, I actually wanted this so I can actually take the Hugh Jackman head and put it on here, but why don't they just include it in the first place? I know it's because obvious business practices, but it's ridiculous. We've gotten unmasked heads with past MCU-themed figures. I don't understand why they could not include it with this. If you look at Walmart right now, if you find this there, this is already $27.99 or $27.97. And they did not include an extra Hugh Jackman head sculpt. That's ridiculous. If they cannot give us that extra head, you know what I would have done instead? Take this out altogether and just give us an extra set of hands, like a matching fist hand and a matching open hand. I would have been a-okay with that. But no, they just had to half-heartedly include this accessory without a Hugh Jackman head sculpt, and you have to spend another $20+ just to get that head sculpt, which it's ridiculous. Ugh. But the accessories are what they are. I would have liked it if we got a Hugh Jackman head sculpt, or if they could not give us that head sculpt, just give us an extra pair of hands, and that would have been fine. I can't say the accessories are great. I'm going to give the accessories a 2.5 out of 5. Hasbro just needs to do better with their selection of accessories, especially if they're going to continue raising the price on these figures. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about the articulation. Here's where this figure shines in all its glory. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the articulation. The head is on a double ball peg. There's at the base of the neck and where the head connects, and the range is fantastic. He can look down very good. He can look all the way up very good. He can tilt his head like this, and then the other way too. And he can just do the rolling of the neck. It's fantastic. Hasbro needs to do the articulation scheme for all their Marvel Legends going forward with the double ball peg. Now he does have a ball swivel and hinged shoulders, so they swivel all the way around. They go up past 90 degrees, but who poses their figures like this? And you can bring the arms somewhat forward and somewhat back, but I would prefer if they would have given us an actual butterfly joint. I don't really like this floating ball peg that barely gives you any range, because as you can see when I articulated the arm, the part that they painted over here, now it's misaligned. And you have to manually adjust that, and that can get pretty annoying after some time when you're posing this figure. It would have been nice to actually get a butterfly joint, but you know, that articulation is what it is. Get a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows that go way past 90 degrees, which is very good. And then you get swivel and hinged wrist. You get a ball jointed ab crunch that works very good. So he can crunch forward like that. I wouldn't say it's the best joint ever, but it's definitely an improvement from what they gave Deadpool here, which is this old style ab crunch. It still works, so he could still crunch forward, but aesthetically it doesn't look all that great and seems outdated. But I do appreciate this figure for what it is, don't get me wrong. But having it like this is just much better. Now, going back, he can go back that far, but it does get a little odd when you're looking at him from the side. So definitely finesse with that as you're posing this figure. He does have a waist swivel that works very good, although if they could incorporate a ball jointed waist, that would be ideal. And then he has T-jointed style hips, so he can kick forward all the way to 90 degrees. Excellent. And if you go back, barely anything because of his butt sculpt. But this is what I mean, as I've said in some of my past reviews, that you don't need the drop down hips to get very good motion in the hips. If you engineer it like this, you can get poses out of this pretty good. He does have a thigh swivel, although be aware that if you do use the thigh swivel, if you pose it like this, that's going to look really odd. He's got double jointed knees that work very good. He doesn't have a boot swivel, unfortunately. That would have helped with posing. He has hinged ankles with the ankle rockers. I would have liked to see a ball jointed waist, and if they could engineer the torso articulation much better, that would have helped. They should have included butterfly joints, because this part right over here, when you're moving it around, can move around too much and it just gets annoying after a while. It is decent for what it is, but I would have preferred actual butterfly joints. And a boot swivel would have greatly helped this figure as well. But for the most part, the articulation is a significant improvement compared to the astonishing Wolverine that they first released when the movie was out. And I couldn't be happier with those improvements, but there are some things that they still need to work on. The articulation gets a score of 4 out of 5. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about the playability. This figure is a ton of fun to pose. I know I mentioned that There are some issues with this release and some things that could have been better, but I have just been having a blast posing this figure in all the different kinds of poses that you can think of when it comes to a character like Wolverine. And how does this figure compare with some other action figure lines as well as some other Marvel Legends action figures? So we're going to go ahead and go over that right now. For fun, we're actually going to compare Hugh Jackman's Wolverine with Dolph Lundgren's He-Man. So there's how the scale would look like with Dolph Lundgren's He-Man. So there's that scale. By the way, that figure is a Motu Classic Super 7 Rebel Leader He-Man. Here is Wolverine compared with some G.I. Joe classified action figures. So here we have the G.I. Joe classified retro card Scarlet, along with the G.I. Joe Origins movie Snake Eyes. Let's go ahead and standing up straight here. That's how Wolverine looks like standing next to some G.I. Joe classified action figures, so it gives you an idea of the scale. He looks like he would fit in very well with that action figure line if you wanted to actually include him with those figures. Here is Wolverine compared with some Star Wars Black Series action figures. Right over here we have the Mandalorian holding Grogu. This is the Book of Boba Fett version. And here we have the Target exclusive Clone Wars style Obi-Wan Kenobi. As you can see, he fits in pretty good with those action figures. He is on the tall side, but if you wanted to mix him in with some Star Wars Black Series action figures, that could also work. Now we'll compare him with some MCU action figures. Here we have the Iron Man Mark III from the Infinity Saga wave. And here we have the recently re-released Avengers Endgame Captain America. This brown-suited Wolverine is a little bit taller than Captain America, but fun fact, Hugh Jackman is a little bit taller than Chris Evans in real life, so this would be accurate. And he is a little bit and Wolverine is a little bit shorter than Iron Man himself because he's in a suit of armor. But if you ask me, the scale is very good. Of course, we need to compare him with, so this is the Deadpool Legacy Fox version of Deadpool. And as you can see, they complement each other beautifully. I have no complaints here. Here is Wolverine compared with Thor from the Love and Thunder film. And here we have him compared with Natalie Portman's Mighty Thor. You can see he works well with those action figures. Here is Wolverine compared with a recently released Marvel Legends action figure from near the end of last year. Here we have Wolverine with the TV series version of Daredevil from Daredevil Born Again. I feel Daredevil is a little bit too tall compared to Wolverine, but you have them posed and not standing straight like this, it'll be a-okay. And a comparison that I've been excited to actually do with this Wolverine, here we have, now I gotta bring him into frame. Alright, here we go. Let's bring him back over here. Here we have Wolverine compared with the Diamond Select Avengers movie Hulk action figure. I love the scale between these two. I know it may not be 100% accurate to how it would be depicted on film, but I gotta say, just having these two side by side is fantastic. It should definitely give us a Wolverine versus Hulk film, or if a film is too much, 60-minute special would actually not be bad. I would actually take that. But he looks great with the Diamond Select movie Hulk that Diamond Select Toys did more than a decade ago. Let's compare Wolverine with another older action figure. This one's actually an old one from the Toy Biz days. But here we have Brown Suited Wolverine compared with Michael Chiklis's The Thing from the first Fantastic Four Fox film. As you can see, these two look great together. And I wonder if Hasbro is ever going to do releases of the Fox version of the Fantastic Four. That would be really cool. I would love it if they could actually knock it out of the park with Michael Chiklis's The Thing. That would be awesome to see how Hasbro would do that action figure if they were to make it. Let's compare Brown Suited Wolverine to a very popular Wolverine action figure praised by many. Here we have him with the CT Toys comic version of Brown Suited Wolverine. You can tell he's the accurate comic short king, and compared with him you could notice the size difference. But that's how he looks like compared with CT Toys' Brown Suited Wolverine. Let's compare him with an older Wolverine figure that Hasbro released in the Red Hulk wave. Here we have him compared with the Hasbro Marvel Legends Red Hulk series Tiger Stripe Wolverine that they released way back, I believe it was around 2008. That's how this new brown suited movie version of Wolverine looks with this Wolverine. And we obviously have to compare the movie brown suited version with the very first Marvel Legends Wolverine from Series 3 of Toy Biz's line. So this is how they look together. And as you can see, we've come a long way with Marvel Legends ever since 2003. This review would not be complete without comparing him with our good friends Herman and Grandpa Munster. So if you want to know how Wolverine looks like with some NECA Ultimate Action figures, this should give you an idea of the scale. And you could make him work with these figures since Wolverine is technically supposed to be short, but I'll leave that up to you if that is something that you want to do. But this is how the scale would look like if you wanted to display him with those action figures. There are just numerous possibilities with this action figure that make him a ton of fun and likely one of the best Marvel Legends to have come out this year. So for playability, I'm going to give the score a 5 out of 5. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about the value. Is this worth the $24.99 price tag? Is this worth $27.99 that you may find this figure in some retail stores? I'd say he's somewhat worth the $24.99 price, but I wouldn't pay $27.99 for him unless I absolutely must. But if I can get him for $24.99 or perhaps even a little bit lower than that price, then I would say he's got a decent value to him, but that, not including the unmasked Hugh Jackman head sculpt and not giving us matching pairs of alternate hands, those things are just a deal breaker for me personally anyways. The value gets a score of 3 out of 5. Now on to the overall final thoughts with this action figure. This was definitely on my pickup list for this year. I haven't been collecting too many Marvel Legends action figures just because of the significant price increase, but I made an exception for this one because I wasn't too happy with how they did the astonishing suit version of Wolverine from the film. And when I saw photos of this action figure, it looked a lot better than that other figure. And having it finally in my collection and getting a chance to pose and play around with him, he's definitely a fun figure to have if you're a fan of MCU-themed action figures. He could also work as a comic book Wolverine, but the height may actually be a deal breaker for you. But that isn't to say this is a terrible figure. So overall, I'm going to give Brown Suited Wolverine here an overall score of 4 out of 5. Where can you pick up this figure? He is starting to show up at some Target and Walmart retail stores, so if you go looking at your local Walmart or Target store, there is a chance that you can find him over there. If you're having trouble finding him locally at retail, you can get him online, but just be prepared. You're going to probably pay at least $27.99 for him, not including shipping and other fees associated with that. Thanks for watching this action figure review. If you enjoyed it and found it very informative, consider becoming a regular supporter. Subscribe to this video channel, subscribe to my Substack publication for additional content related to the toys that we love, and you can support my work by making a one-time or monthly paid contribution through my Buy Me a Coffee link, all of which you can find in the video description below. With that said, I wish you nothing but the absolute best.